Now here we are on to chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3, One Room Schoolhouse. Let's check it out, said Annie. Jack and Annie walked up the little hill. At the top, they saw the rusty pipe. Oh, I grabbed the wrong book. I was going to say, this doesn't make sense. This is the book that I have to tell you about at the end of these chapters because we're reading it tomorrow. Apparently, there's a one-room schoolhouse. Anyway, chapter 3. It's time. Annie lifted her long dress and ran to the tree close to the river. Jack held onto his hat and ran after her. They peeked out from behind the tree. More snow flurries swirled in the twilight. "Redcoats?" whispered Annie. "Can't tell," said Jack. In the flickering firelight, the men didn't seem to be wearing uniforms at all. They wore ragged pants and coats. Some even had their feet wrapped in tattered cloth. "Come on," Annie said. She ran to the tree closer to the river. Jack followed. "This is as close as we should get," he whispered. "But we still can't tell what they're wearing," said Annie. She crept forward and hid behind a scraggly bush. "No, closer," said Jack. But Annie took off again. She crouched behind a rock. She was only about 10 feet from the campfire. "Oh, brother, she's way too close now," Jack thought. But he took a deep breath and ran to the rock. When he joined Annie, she looked at him and grinned. "This is like hide and seek," she whispered. "It's not a game, Annie," Jack whispered back. "It's war. Be serious." "I am serious," said Annie, her voice rising. "Shh," said Jack. But it was too late. One of the men stood up and looked around. Uh-oh. "What's the matter, Captain?" another asked. "I heard something," said the captain. He held up his musket. Jack stopped breathing. "Who's there?" the captain shouted. Jack looked at Annie. She shrugged. "We're caught," she whispered. "Who's there?" the captain shouted again. "Just 2 kids," Annie answered in a small voice. "Come out and show yourselves," the captain said. Jack and Annie stood up from behind the rock. They both held out their hands. "We come in peace," said Annie. In the shadowy twilight, the captain moved towards them. "Who are you?" he asked. "We're Jack and Annie," said Annie. "Why were you spying on us?" he asked. "We weren't spying," said Jack. "We just wanted to know if you were redcoats or patriots." "Which would you like us to be?" the shadowy figure asked. "Patriots," said Jack. "We are patriots," the captain said. "Thank goodness," said Annie. The captain smiled. "Where are you from?" he asked. His voice had softened. "We are visiting relatives nearby," Jack said. "Frog Creek, Pennsylvania," said Annie at the same time. "But that's amazing," the captain said. "My farm is in Frog Creek. Where is your farm?" Jack didn't know how to answer. "It's near the Frog Creek woods," said Annie. "All farms are near the woods," the man said with a laugh. "What?" Just then someone called up the river. "It's time, Captain." The captain turned to the other men near the campfire. "It's time," he repeated. The soldiers quickly put out their fire. They stood with their muskets on their shoulders. "Time for what, Captain?" Annie asked. "Time to meet up with our commander-in-chief," he said. "Return to your family now so your mother and father won't worry about you." "Yes, sir," said Jack. "It was nice to see children," the captain said. "I was just trying to write a letter to my own son and daughter. I don't know what to say." "Tell them that you miss them," said Annie. The man smiled. "And I do indeed," he said softly. Then he turned and headed to the river bank. His ragged men followed behind. Soon they all disappeared into the cold mist. Jack and Annie looked around. The wind was blowing harder. The snow was sticking to the ground. "What now?" he asked. More than anything, he wanted to go back to home. With the soldiers gone, the riverbank felt lonely and scary. "We still have to find something to send," said Annie. "I know," said Jack. "Maybe we should just follow the captain and his men," said Annie. "They might lead to something." Jack wasn't sure that was a good idea, but he didn't have a better one. "Okay, but let's try not to get caught this time," he said. He and Annie took off towards the frozen twilight, following the snowy footprints of the American patriots. Chapter 4, Commander-in-Chief. Jack and Annie ran along the riverbank. The wind whooshed over the cold water. Wet snowflakes hissed in the dark. But then Jack heard other sounds. He heard voices, lots of voices. He and Annie soon came upon hundreds and hundreds of soldiers gathered near the dark river. Many carried old oil lanterns. The lanterns gave an eerie glow to the snowy twilight. "The captain and his men must be here, somewhere," said Jack. Looking around, boats like giant canoes were tied near the river. Men were leading horses and loading canoes into the boats. "What are they doing?" said Annie. Jack pulled out the Revolutionary War book. He read in a whisper, "On Wednesday, December 25th, 1776. "December 25th? That's Christmas," said Annie. "Today's Christmas." "Cool," said Jack. He started reading again. "On Wednesday, December 25th, 1776, the Patriots were losing the war. Ragged and weary, many were ready to give up. Then something began to happen that would turn the war around. About 2,400 American patriots gathered at the west bank of the Delaware River in Pennsylvania. They prepared to cross the river to go on a secret mission." "A secret mission? Oh, man," said Jack. He started to pull out his notebook. "Attention, troops!" the commander-in-chief, a soldier, shouted. It's "Attention, troops, the commander-in-chief!" a soldier shouted. Jack and Annie saw a man in a dark cape and three-cornered hat ride up on a white horse. The commander-in-chief loomed above the crowd of soldiers. His cape flapped in the wind. He sat calmly and with dignity on the back of his horse. Even in the distance, Jack thought that the commander-in-chief looked familiar. Very familiar. But he couldn't figure out why. "A dangerous mission lies before you all," the man shouted above the wind. "But I want you to have courage. You must remember the words of Thomas Paine." The commander-in-chief held up a piece of paper. He read to his men. "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldiers and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of the men and women." "Wow, that's great," whispered Annie. Listening to the powerful words, Jack felt his spirits rise too. The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. The commander-in-chief read on. "What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is our dearness only that gives everything its value." There was a silence, as if everyone were thinking about the words the man read. Then the soldiers started cheering and clapping. They didn't seem tired at all anymore. Now they seemed eager to set up their mission. The commander-in-chief saluted his men. He steered his horse towards the river. As the horse moved past them, Jack got a better look at the rider. He gasped. Of course, he thought. He'd seen that face before, on dollar bills. Jack grabbed Annie's arm. "I know who the commander-in-chief is," he exclaimed. "It's George Washington." And that is the end of chapter 4. I will be right back for chapters 5 and 6.